Welcome back to The Beast Within. I'm your host, Aaron Saltzman, and today we are uncovering a beast that every single person that steps foot in the gym fights at some point. Sitting here today with Sam, and what I want to talk about with this beast is there's a version of us that lives consistently in the mirror, obsessed with appearance, perfection, and aesthetics, but then there's the version of us that lives with purpose, guided by values, driven by growth, and grounded by what we call health. Today we're sitting down with Sam Gawes, Sam Gawes, a coach who went to battle with the mirror beast herself. A beast that once told her she wasn't enough unless she was smaller, leaner, and more perfect. But instead of shrinking, she stepped into who she truly is and now helps others do the same. Sam is a fitness influencer. I've gotten to know Sam from working with her in the gym at Lifetime. A very outgoing person, somebody that you would never think struggles with this beast and had it all. At least that's what we assumed. Now she helps people through nutrition, online coaching, personal training, and helping them live with a better mindset. So I'd like to introduce Sam and want to say thank you so much for being here with us today. You have no idea how many people this can help because so many people battle this thing silently. And so I want to leave it in with you on what does the mirror beast mean to you?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Like Aaron said, we've known each other for quite a while since we both worked at Lifetime as personal trainers. And between then and now, a lot has changed in my life as well as yours. And a big piece of that change has been why I work out or why I eat the way that I do and the balance that I've been able to achieve in fueling my body, but also enjoying life and all of the wonderful parts of it that I previously would restrict and neglect in order to attain a certain physique or to look a certain way and to be smaller. And most of my life has been essentially a pursuit of that smaller version of myself. I went to the extreme of studying nutritional science, dietetics. I got my master's in kinesiology and sport nutrition. And I don't want to say fully to attain a certain physique, but it was a huge motivating factor in why I was so obsessed and interested in the subject. And took it all the way to bodybuilding, got down to below 10% body fat and what I think a lot of people struggle with is that up and down of your weight. So I would lose a lot of weight and then I would gain a lot of weight, right? There was no balance, there was no consistency, no sustainability. And through that roller coaster ride, I became increasingly less fulfilled in that pursuit and ultimately led me to where I am now, which is finding that sustainable and healthier lifestyle that I'm excited to go to the gym because I have all these things that I can work on that aren't just about looking a certain way, but they really have a stronger purpose. And that gets me excited about working out. It doesn't feel like a chore anymore. It doesn't feel like something I have to do. It's something that I get to do that will 20, 30, 40 years from now help me live or continue to live the lifestyle that I want to live. So ultimately, that's like long story short.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. And that's the kind of things that I want to dive in on this podcast because that right there is going to be a tool that we can utilize that we'll talk about a little later that people can utilize as a win inside of the gym instead of looking at it as always an image. And so it's amazing because I've watched your journey and I watch your social media platforms and it's amazing how well you put together the safety of people being okay with not only the way they look, but the way that they can live their life. You don't have to be overly restricted, right? On your social medias, you preach that. On your social medias, you have desserts, you have the real lifestyle, and people need to realize that that's okay and that is what's going to be sustainable. And so I think in the fitness industry, people see when they see you whenever you were 10% body fat and they see the abs and they see, oh, she's made it, she's at the top of the mountain, I can never be there, she must be so perfect. But in your mind things were going a different way, right? And so take us back to that Sam. How did that Sam feel? Obviously the body was there, the body was an image that everybody's chasing, but you were sitting in those shoes, and were you fulfilled?
Been a little bit. I think, in retrospect, there were, of course, moments where, you look in the mirror and you are satisfied. But more often, actually, I was picking myself apart even more. And what's interesting about that concept as a whole is actually what I studied as part of my thesis, my master's program, was the psychological effects that bodybuilders undergo through their prep. So as you're decreasing your body fat, are you more or less critical of your self image? And what I found in my thesis was that you would think people would become increasingly more satisfied with the way that they looked in the mirror. And the opposite was actually true. That as you are obsessed with attaining a certain physique, the more you look in the mirror, the more you are trying to aesthetically change your body, the less you become satisfied with that body. So as much as we think, oh, once I get to this, I'm going to be happy, or once I drop a pant size, once I can see my abs, I'm going to be happy. And the science says, the evidence says that actually that's not the case. And I found that in my research, and I found that personally in my own experience, that the more lean I became, and of course, a component of becoming lean is you're following that journey. You're obsessing over some numbers, you're looking in the mirror more often, you're looking for that change. And the more you're looking at your body, maybe it's not, getting smaller at your waistline. Maybe you want to build your glutes. It's always going to be something. And that's the chase that I think a lot of people are in, especially in this modern world with social media and just
Absolutely.
media in general. Like there's
Yes.
always going to be more.
And I love that that's where this conversation just went because it is a science, right? It's so many people just it's an emotion for many people, right? It's an emotion of how they're feeling and they dive deep into their emotion and they don't know what's actually going on in a deeper perspective. And so that means a lot to me because what I'm trying to do with the beast within is uncover what's really going on with the mindset. Why are you feeling this way? How can we overcome it? And how can we kind of learn from others who are sitting there that have been down the road that you've been down. And so I love the science behind what you just said is the more you uncover, it seems like the more difficulty it gets on your emotions and your depression and you fall into this abyss of always wanting more. And so with that, I want to dive into a quote that I'm going to read so I don't butcher it. And I want to see how it performs with you and what your thoughts are on it. So the quote goes, "The mirror can only show you your shape, not your strength, your healing, or your heart. Yet we keep asking it to reflect our worth. Your true transformation doesn't happen in your reflection. It happens in the quiet, consistent choices that no one sees." And so with that for you, how does that fit with you in life now? What kind of choices maybe do you make now that make it more so about the love of your body versus the obsession of what you see in the mirror?
That is such a phenomenal quote. I don't know who that came from,
Right?
but
Right?
and I think one of the biggest things that I revert back to is because I still struggle with body image. I still struggle with wanting to be a leaner version of myself, but what stops me from the more destructive behaviors or really leaning into something that would take away from my health, because ultimately being leaner does not mean healthier. Being smaller doesn't mean you're going to have a more abundant life and that you're going to enjoy things more. So I just remind myself of that my life experience is so much more important to me than how other people see me or how I look in the mirror. Because when I was at my leanest, I was constantly fatigued. I was getting dizzy. I was hungry. I was obsessive over food. I would scroll on social media just looking at videos of food, just waiting for the day where I was able to like really treat myself. And that's not a way that I want to live my life. And in the process of becoming so lean and attaining my quote unquote physique goals, there was a lot of sacrifice in terms of relationships, in terms of being good at my job. I was irritable. I sacrificed a lot. And I think that's one thing that I always try to remind myself of and also my clients, that when you sacrifice anything in the pursuit of something, it's never going to be sustainable, at least in the context of, and I'll give you an example just to really drive it home. If I'm pursuing whether it is a body composition goal or maybe it's even performance related, if I neglect relationships, if I never go out to eat, once I start bringing those things back into my routine, then whatever progress I made through like, body composition, that'll be less of a priority and therefore it'll probably change a little bit, maybe not in the direction that you were hoping it would, right? So the more that you can try and maintain balance with all parts of life at the same time, the more sustainable any body composition that you achieve will be.
I love it. And so what I'm kind of hearing is the more you allow it to be more empowering versus punishment, right? So we utilize fitness for some reason as a term of punishment of I have to restrict myself, I have to do this, and it affects all avenues of your life. It affects your relationships, it affects your mind, it affects your energy, it affects your irritability like you mentioned. And so what kind of things can people look at a little bit differently? How can somebody channel their mindset just a little differently to stop looking at fitness as a term of punishment, as I have to reach this goal, I have to be so strict on myself to reach this goal, versus something that's more empowering? Because if you take it in as empowering, especially somebody sitting at a level like you where people are following you, well, that is now going to embrace others to do the same. And so, what is something that somebody can maybe do to flip that script a little bit and stop beating themselves up and being so harsh on themselves, to have that image and take it day by day and enjoy the journey?
It's tough because I've always loved movement. I love to go for walks. I love to be outside. And I think maybe that is a part of the puzzle is find things that you love to do. And you're not going to love every workout, but I would say most of the time you do love how you feel afterward. So even if I don't really want to go, that is my focus going into a workout or getting myself even out of the house in the car into the gym. I know I'm going to feel so good after. Like that feeling after a good workout or any workout, even just doing the things that you commit to and saying, okay, well, tomorrow I'm going to the gym. Well, when tomorrow comes, when you actually go to the gym, it might not be the workout itself that feels really great, but maybe it's that feeling of, okay, I set out to do this thing and I did it and I didn't turn back on that commitment that I
Yeah.
made to myself.
Right. You signed the dotted line and you showed up for yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
think the more that you do that, the more it just becomes second nature. It feels more habitual, and that's at the point I'm at now. So it's hard to even remember a time where it was so difficult to get myself out of the house and go to the gym because it's ingrained in me now. It's a part of my identity of like, yeah, I go to the gym, I enjoy my workouts. And even when that's maybe not 100% true, it's at least partially true. And so it's something that I think you just build over time and through repetition. So while your first week might feel the hardest, your second week, I guarantee you, is going to feel a little bit easier. Now, that doesn't mean that a month, 6 months down the road, you don't have a hard week. I think that even for women in particular, with changes in hormones across the month, like some weeks genuinely are just harder than others, but it's kind of knowing and accepting and embracing that as part of the process and just doing it anyway.
Yeah, and I think giving yourself some love and support on showing up on those days mean the most, versus instead of the mindset of you have to be perfect all the time, it's I showed up today, that's a win, I'm headed in the right direction, because we know it's a lifelong journey. It's not something that we're looking, there is no end goal, right? So it's like we're always chasing this goal, so we might as well do it with a peaceful mind. And so, was there ever a time that when it came to fitness, you hated showing up? Was there a time where during this process it was I'm angry all the time when I show up, I don't want to be here, my energy is off? And when was that? And do you still feel that now?
That's actually really funny because it's so relevant to actually how I feel about running right now.
Oh, great. Okay.
So, the first experience or thought that came to my mind when you asked that was when I was really deep in bodybuilding, when I was at my leanest. And one of the symptoms of overtraining is a lack of desire to show up and be there. So, doing too much, under fueling, overtraining it can be, there are a bunch of different symptoms to it, but ultimately it leads you to illness or injury.
Yes.
And when you're not feeding yourself enough, when you're doing too much, then that typically is where you're heading. And I felt that to an extreme level. I previously loved going to the gym, but towards the end, when I was at my leanest, I really wasn't wanting to be there. I mean, I showed up anyway, but when the shows were over, it made it really hard to come back.
Hmm.
And then that's where like a lot of the yo-yo dieting came in of like, okay, I was really lean and then I gained all this weight and then I wanted to get lean again. Long story short, that was probably the first time I really strongly felt that way. And then recently, I randomly, more or less, signed up for a marathon because it's a bucket list item that I wanted to do. And I started training for it. And it was one of the more rigorous training schedules that I had had since bodybuilding. And it was
Hmm.
probably the most strict I've been as well with like my nutrition and my training because my biggest fear going into this marathon was overtraining,
Hmm.
injuring myself, getting sick. I didn't want it to take away from anything that followed. I didn't I mean that's probably one of my biggest fears now is not being able to do the things that I want to do, whether that's something as simple as going out for a walk. So I'm really protective of that. So I really like plugged into this process of training for the marathon. I did the marathon and now I'm so over running. Like I worked myself. So I went for a run yesterday with some friends and it was 7 miles and I had tears in my eyes
You
before.
hated every step.
I didn't hate the run itself, but
Uh-huh.
like I really didn't want to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
A part of me is like I'm glad that I did it because I had actually a pretty good run. But before it, I was so mad and I was
Hmm.
like so frustrated that I had to do this thing. And so for me, whether this is a personality thing, I don't care thing, I don't know what it is, but I think that anytime I commit so hard and without balance or without, like I just think that it takes away from my enjoyment of certain things. It turns
Yeah.
into I have to do something instead of I want to do something. And it's a switch that I think I need to be a little bit more cognizant of, aware of as I move forward through the rest of my life of like when I really am super strict on something, I think that it pulls me outside of my body almost. And it doesn't allow me to really experience the thing that I'm wanting to experience
Absolutely.
and it's just not as enjoyable.
And I think what you said is exactly what the mirror beast tends to do is it creates an obsession. You're obsessed on this goal and you overtrain yourself. And this is where things become abusive, right? We start to put our bodies through things that are not good for your body. It's not sustainable. You're going to get aches, you're going to get pains, you're going to get sicknesses. And it's all because we're chasing this reflection of what we see ourselves in the mirror. And so there's an analogy on, and this is a beautiful way of looking at things on how we see ourselves versus how others see us. And so the analogy is like the foggy mirror when you get out of the shower. And in the foggy mirror, it's a distortion when you're looking at it on how you're seeing yourself, right? You see yourself as this distorted figure. While if somebody were to walk in, they're going to see the real you. And so, how long and maybe what steps did you take to help clear that foggy mirror? What kind of things did you start adapting into your life to start really enjoying that process and loving yourself during it and not beating yourself up over what you are seeing?
It's so tough because I think that we all have a foggy image of what we look like. We actually have no idea what we look like, right? Because it's through a lens that is distorted and everybody else will see us through a different lens. And so I think the more that at least for me, the more I've valued my own self beyond what I see in the mirror, and also the more that I stay away from being really critical and looking in that mirror, the better my mental health and my self-image is. I think drawing back to like to one of those in particular is finding that value outside of the way that you look, right? We live in such a you know, an image based society like that really is the most, especially like no offense to California, but like it's a little bit more heightened here than maybe it is other places. You see a lot more plastic surgery and you maybe compare yourself to other people a little bit more than maybe other places, but being aware of that and I guess awareness is the first step, right? The more that you can be aware of what you're thinking, what you're saying to yourself, the better you'll be able to correct it and start to transform that self-talk, right? Don't say bad things to yourself in the mirror. And then also, what are the things that make you you? And why do other people love you? Because I guarantee everyone who listened to this or even, you and I here, that's not why people fall in love with you. the way that you look is just a small piece of such a large puzzle. And another thing that I do is, or try to do, is fill my life with other things that are not oriented around the way that I look. So I just started taking Spanish classes
Oh, I
after
love
like
it.
a decade.
What do you got for us so far?
Oh, un poco, not much. Um,
Okay.
but like, doing things that challenge you in ways that are not directly correlated to how you look. I think that if you look at your entire day and most of what you do is to change the way that you look, and and I guess your motivation is a big part of why you do something.
Yeah.
But when I go to the gym, I can think of probably five reasons why I should be there. 5 ways that it's impacting me, not just from the way that I look, but also the way that I feel, the way that it's going to help me feel 10, 30 years from now. Like, I can think of a variety of reasons that draw me into this space. But if you're looking at your entire day, like, what other things are you doing throughout your day to help build you up? Right? Whether that's learning something new, helping somebody out, maybe it's volunteering, like, what are the things that are going to help you build you up as a person and not just focus solely on the way that you look. And it's so easy to default into just thinking about the way that you look because that's just how I think society has built itself up to be. And that would be like more my disordered eating like thoughts would be like to revert back to being so superficial and like judging other people superficially or also just judging myself superficially. So drawing
Hmm.
myself out of that is a big way I think of how I've been able to change and adjust over time.
And everything that you just said is exactly why I was so excited to have you on this podcast. It was perfect, like lined up. So, the reason for this podcast is exactly what you said. It's to bring awareness, because that's the first step, bringing awareness to everybody that the inner battles that they are facing, one, others are facing as well. People that you wouldn't believe are, such as yourself. Then, two, that you can overcome it and you can live a much more fulfilled lifestyle and allow your mindset to open up to new horizons on reaching your fullest potential. And so, what I love that you said, two things, is the awareness, bringing awareness to it. The other thing that is amazing is allowing that something in your life that is not superficial, that's not about your looks, your image. And so, I think, like you said, with the social media driven world that we live in, everything that we do is targeted towards that outlook. How am I going to look? How am I going to be perceived? How does my whatever look? Am I fit enough? Am I right? Even just being on this podcast, it's overwhelming that knowing that there's going to be a visual of it. How do I look in the podcast, right? And so taking those steps out of the equation by doing something like Spanish, I think that's awesome. Allowing yourself to test yourself in ways that are driven past the way that we are visually seen. And so I love that. That's an amazing tool that people can utilize and they can utilize it immediately. Start doing something that doesn't test that beast, the mirror beast. Start allowing that to be set down for a little bit and see how it feels. The other one I love that you said is finding different value of why you're in the gym. You said, I have 5 reasons to be there. And not every single one of those is the way that you see yourself in the mirror, right? It could be, I'm here for a new PR. I'm here to learn a new movement pattern. The great thing about Sam, and like I said, I follow her on social media, is she does so many different avenues of fitness. She's in the gym, one. She's working out at home. She's a runner. She does yoga. Like, she spreads herself out so that way she can really enjoy the different processes of how her body works mechanically. And so I think that is one of the best tools that I've heard on this Mirror Beast is go to the gym for a different reason. Because we know if you consistently show up to the gym, the body's going to follow, right? And so if you can be kind to yourself and not beat yourself up, the workouts are going to be easier, more enjoyable. The nutrition will follow because you're not beating yourself up and falling into these emotional holes. And so I love that with that tool. And so with that being said, what are any other tools that you maybe have that people can really start getting out of the mirror and start living their everyday life within the fitness realm?
One, I would say, and this was a really big transition moment for me, was asking myself and journaling. Journaling was really helpful for me as well. It gets you out of your body and brings you back to like that awareness component that I think is really valuable in understanding why you are the way that you are, why you think the way that you are, and most likely it probably draws back to like your childhood, how you were raised. And one question I go back to with myself and with clients is like, can you be happy? Can I be happy with the healthiest version of myself? Whatever that looks like, and making the decision that, yeah, like the healthiest version of me as a byproduct is probably maybe a little bit of a leaner version. If I'm making a, 80-20% like more healthful choices, whether that's in the gym or nutritionally or with sleep or stress, and connecting to, okay, yes, if I put health first, like I can be happy, be content, be fulfilled with the body that is, right? And because everyone's going to look different. Unfortunately, it might take an unhealthy version of you to achieve your physique goals. And is that sacrifice worth it? Some people might say yes, and they might I think I needed to go through the experience of suffering and to really find the value. And of course, like my hope isn't that that is the case for everybody. I hope that we can learn from each other's mistakes and each other's fault. Like,
And I just want to piggyback up on that is I truly believe that some are made to suffer and then they're made to lead, right? They go through the suffer to I talked about this last podcast, you grow through what you go through. And I believe that, you're made to suffer the way that you did in order to help others not have to suffer and to teach others the tools that you had to learn in the trenches. And now they get to walk in the beautiful grass that you have planted because of what you went through. And so I'll let you get back to your thought on that. But I think that's beautiful. And that's the reason truly for what you had to go through is to help others, you know?
and then the other thing I would add to that is, so journaling's great, asking yourself kind of the harder questions and being really vulnerable and honest with those responses. I read a book recently called Outlive by Peter Attia. He's done a ton of podcasts. You can maybe introduce yourself to his genius, I guess, in other ways if you're not interested in reading a book. But one thing I started doing in 2021, now it's like 4 years later, was just 5, 10 pages, 5, 10 minutes of reading something educational every day. So that was my piece of adding in something that had nothing to do with how I looked,
I
but
love it.
added value to myself. And one of the books that I picked up was Outlive by Peter Attia, and it's a longevity based book. And it gave me so much purpose, both nutritionally and with training, because it really focuses on the part of our healthcare that doesn't really exist yet, and that is be like with the prevention aspect
Right.
of.
Versus prescription. Yeah.
Exactly. And so it was such a transformative book for me. I love to shout it out any chance that I get because it was so impactful. And I really just became so interested in not just living as long as possible, but the quality of my life for as long as possible. And a big component of that is strength training. A big component of that is also cardio, zone two training, VO2 max. It's paying attention to being in my body and how I feel as opposed to just looking in the mirror and getting feedback from the scale, right? So it's kind of negating those tools that I had used for years to assess my value more or less, which I don't recommend to anybody.
Yeah.
Even with clients, I don't love using weight measurements because it doesn't tell the full story. It doesn't tell,
Absolutely.
and I think if actually this is, I think, a really important part of scale weight in general is if you step on the scale and you're either hyped or you're really upset, it's not a good tool.
Lose
Yeah,
lose. Yeah. Yeah.
because you're either validating your actions or you're gonna, be mad at yourself for something that you didn't even do, right? Like there's so much more going on within our bodies, and as a general rule, I think that we can all benefit from appreciating and honoring our bodies a little bit more. I think that we are harder on ourselves than we need to be, and we're harder on our bodies. Like our bodies are incredible, what they're able to do, and coming from a place more of love and respect always got me so much more than hating myself into a body type
Yeah.
or hating myself into the gym and getting myself there. Sure, like you could be disappointed in yourself or, but that's more of an action thing, I think. If you are disappointed that you didn't show up for yourself, that's fair. But if you're disappointed because you put in all of this work and you step on the scale and all of a sudden that work didn't exist, you didn't do the thing that you set out to do. Well, you did. Look at all of this proof. And now all of
Exactly.
a sudden you're telling yourself it didn't
And
happen.
I think what a lot of people escape their minds when it comes to fitness is the tools that fitness brings outside of the image and what it creates, right? What do we learn in the gym? Well, we learn discipline. Well, we learn structure. We learn to be there for ourselves. We learn failure. We learn pain. We learn suffering, right? These are all things that fitness teaches us outside of the way our body looks. And so to piggyback off what you said, two tools that I loved was the journal, right? Get out of your body and get into your mind. And how's your mind feeling versus the way that your body is feeling or looking? And the other one was, if I can remember, it was about planning for an event, right? So you said like you planned for a marathon. Well, that's another way to get out of your body and more into the structure of fitness, right? The structure of fitness is these small wins that accumulate to something greater. And so planning an event, there's races, there's runs, there's Spartan races, there's marathon, half marathon, triathlon, whatever it may be. There's strength and conditioning type, competitions, but whatever it takes to get yourself off of the scale and into your own realm of what fitness can be. And so, with that being said, any other tools or anything that you want to leave them with? I actually want to ask you something about you brought up social media. Social media is the world that we live in today. Matter of fact, some people as they grow older, they don't know anything but social media. And so how do you stay grounded in the with the mere beast with social media lurking, right? All it takes is one little doom scroll and you're following people that you're comparing your journey to theirs, their highs, their lows. So what things can you maybe give to the people on how to balance that out and not be obsessed with what social media brings?
I wish I could say that I have it figured out because I don't. I love to scroll on TikTok. I think the algorithm is so great.
Yeah.
Uh, I learn a lot. I laugh a lot. I cry a lot on social media.
And so what you just said is the beautiful part of social media, right? That's the beauty is there are some things. So do you just keep your mind away from what's negatively speaking to you? Are you able to visually catch that feeling? Because I know like whenever you go down that road, if it starts to turn dark versus happy and light, it can be a very, very high mountain to climb.
I guess the way that I protect myself from that is because I post on social media. I don't, sometimes I hang around and I'll like read some comments and I'll interact, but more often I'll like post and ghost and just kind of like
Mm,
let it do its thing. I don't take too much or I don't put too much weight on the response sometimes. I just work really hard to create content that is meaningful and impactful for me and I hope for other people. And if somebody has a negative, I might want to hear it. Like I want to, get like feedback from all
yeah,
directions.
criticism could be positive.
Yeah, but I don't have to respond to every mean comment. I don't have
Yeah.
to, if I see it, I see it. Like there's no going back, but I can
Mhm.
also detach from it and it's a unique situation because it is my job. And so it's my job to post content, to put myself out there. And I think the negatives to posting on social media is that you open yourself up to criticism, and that can be character building. It can also create some insecurities that maybe didn't exist before.
Yeah.
Figuring out what way to protect yourself from that, I think it is really important. I sometimes I'll find myself watching a video and be like, ew, why am I watching this? Like I don't want like this in my life. Like
Yeah.
I kind of
Yeah.
feel the negativity, or I'm like, oh, this person's complaining a lot. I don't want to like let the algorithm know that
Yes.
this is that I'll watch this.
Algorithm's sneaky.
Yes,
It understands.
exactly. So I think protecting myself in those ways of watching the type of content that I want to consume and
Yeah.
then really trying to get away from the things that don't serve me. But it's tough because, like whether you're filming yourself more, you're seeing yourself more on a phone, or I think that it can create some image issues and it can make you feel a
Yeah.
certain way. And I think that that can have a lot of negative consequences to it. And I think we all
Yeah.
experience it. But I don't think that being scared or shying away from getting your photo taken is also the right strategy. I have a
Yeah.
lot of people in my life who don't like getting their photo taken. I think that's totally fine. But at what cost, right? Like, you're
Yeah.
not going to have photos with your kids.
Right.
You're not going to, like,
And that's the mirror beast, if you will, the mirror beast at its finest, right? It's, I mean, instead of a mirror, it's a camera, it's a phone, right? And so it's the mirror beast at its finest that's taking control and not allowing them to do these things that would put them in living their fullest life. And so that's the scary part about social media is it can be a beautiful thing. For instance, it's Sam's job. Like, it is her profession to be on social media. And so she has to have these tools and guidelines in order to feel confident in posting herself. And so I think so many people struggle with that mirror image of themselves that they're not willing to put themselves on social media. They're not willing to step in front of the camera and feel awkward and feel stupid and maybe not like the way that this looks or this looks. And so the mirror beast hinders them from maybe a profession that they could be working in success that they ultimately could have if they can learn to channel the positive of the image that they're seeing in the mirror. And so, with that being said, I want to stand on, thanking Sam so much for being here. It's been honestly a great to learn from you and hear your thoughts. Because like I said, with social media, I watch and you just look happy. And that is the main thing. Like the beautiful smile on camera, like you can tell it's authentic and it's not coming from a scary place or a place like it was before of this beast overpowering your life and not allowing you to take these steps. And so, with that being said, Sam not only lifts the weights, but now I feel like the weights lift her. And that is allowing her to step foot into teaching all of you and helping all of you become better, not only in the gym, but mindset as well. And with that being said, is there anything else that you want to share with the listeners, with the beast within, or with the mere beast in general?
well, thank you. That was so nice. Um, Anything else I would like to share? Just that I think our whole entire purpose on this planet is to like be happy and to build community and to help one another out and, finding whatever route that looks like for you. It might take a while to get there, but, keep working at it is really, I guess, like the final thought.
Yeah, and that's great. And that's a tool in itself for this beast is find the right community. Find people who speak well to you and like-minded or whatever it is that makes you feel comfortable because when you're surrounded by people that make you feel empowered, you start to do empowered things. You start to see yourself in a different light versus if you surround yourself in a negative environment, you become that environment. And so I think that in itself is a tool for this beast or just in the beast within in general is who you surround yourselves with.
Same with social media, curate your feed
Yes.
with people who inspire you and help
Yes.
you feel good and get rid of people who don't, like unfollow the people or mute people.
Hmm.
And they could be people in your immediate life or in real life that you just their energy isn't serving you.
Hmm.
And yeah, protecting that as much as possible, I think is really important. Finding those spaces where you can be your best self and you can
Yes.
learn the most and grow the most. And I'm sure that's how everybody feels when they come into your gym and they
Hmm.
leave feeling like a better version of themselves.
Yes. And so, with that being said, because I'm sure people are going to want to find you after this podcast, they're going to want to learn from you and follow you. So, where can people follow you and
So
find you?
I'm on all social platforms, the Sam Plan, and TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, wherever else. But yeah, come be a part of my community.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I share a lot of recipes on ways to enjoy food, whether you're going out and getting pizza or you're making it at home. Like I think all things exist in a healthy lifestyle. So
Hmm.
yeah, come say hi.
Yeah, definitely give her a follow and understand her page will make you hungry. But unfortunately, you probably won't be able to make it look like the way that she makes it on there because it looks beautiful on her page. And so, with that being said, again, thank you guys for following and for watching this episode of The Beast Within, overcoming the mere beast and how to come out better on the other side. Stop judging yourself. Learn to step out of the image and step into the mental. Again, my name is Aaron Saltzman. This is Sam. Thank you guys for being with us, and we'll see you next time. Peace.